questions, and we will use those questions to guide our discussion. Most of what we're going to talk about today is going to be in a discussion format. I'm going to talk for a few minutes to set the stage, and then we're just going to open it up for discussion. And what I'm hoping to do is when we have discussion, actually put you on audio, and if you have camera capability and you're open to having your camera on, put you on camera, and we will have a conversation about your question and make it more of a discussion versus me doing all the talking and you doing all the listening. There's really no reason for that. So that's what we're going to do. Hopefully that's okay. If it's not okay, you don't really have much of a choice because there's not much we can do about that. So that's the notes for today. And I'll just, one of the other interesting phenomena of Zoom is that if you join the session after someone has posted something in the chat, the new people can't see it. So we have to just keep posting it over and over and over again. But that's how this is going to work. Okay. So I encourage you to help us take notes, be part of the solution, and we'll go from there. So I will post the notes yet one more time for our friends here who have just joined. Okay. So let's get started. First, I should probably tell you who I am. I am internet sensation and teen heartthrob Jared Spool. And Bruno has asked me here today to talk about UX strategy for UX leaders because I have been spending the last decade researching and understanding and helping organizations create their own UX strategies. And so I've learned a bunch of things in my journey. And so we're going to talk about those things. So let me start with a company in Tallahassee, Alabama. Now, you've probably never heard of Tallahassee, Alabama. It is miles away from any place useful. It's I think the closest big cities are Baton Rouge, which is 3 or so hours away, and Atlanta, which are 4 hours away. It's in the southeast part of the United States. And the Tallahassee, Alabama is home to a company called Neptune Technologies. Now, Neptune Technologies is a company you've probably never heard of, but it's very likely you've been using their products for a long time because Tallahassee, Alabama make water meters. So if you live someplace that gets water, chances are there's a Neptune Technologies water meter in your house or in your business or wherever that's measuring all the water that comes through. And this business was founded in the 1860s, and ever since then they've been making these products, which for the most part have been mechanical devices. They've been completely mechanical products, and these mechanical products have basically been their purpose for these mechanical products is to measure the amount of water that comes into the house, so that some institution can get you to pay for the amount of water you use, right? So it's a notion of fairness. And it's a device that has a little wheel. The water pushes the wheel, and that spins a bunch of gears, and those gears spin a bunch of dials that are on the top of the device. And the user interface of the device is basically this static dial that tells you how much water you've used. And people come by every so often, and they read the dials, and they note them on cards, and they go away, and they send you a bill for your water. or your landlord or whoever pays for your water. So that's how it worked until about 10 years ago and 15 years ago. And about 15 years ago, the company realized that their customers needed something better than this. So they started building electronic water meters. These are things that actually use electronic detection of ultrasonic detection of the amount of water moving through the device. And so now the thing needs electricity, and it has a battery, and it has a digital display, and the digital display requires some sort of computing technology. And so they're embedding this in the water meter. And these water meters are far more expensive, but more importantly, they now require a completely different set of skills for the people who are building these things. Whereas the company used to just be basically mechanical engineers and manufacturing people, it's now needs electrical engineers and software engineers and networking engineers. These things, since they started doing the electronic ones, since once they had computers in them, they could put networks in them, and once they could put a network in it, the thing can send a signal so that someone doesn't have to come into your house to read the water meter. They can do it from outside using a radio, or even better, the thing can connect to the Wi-Fi or some other network, and it can actually talk to the water department's headquarters. So now they have networking skills that they need. And of course, on the other side, at the water department, they have to be able to read these things. So they have to build apps that can read this data and display it and collect it and turn it into a bill and do projections on revenue and all of these things. So they're in the visual display business, and they're in the data viz business, and they have to create information architectures and interaction design, and all of these things happen because they are no longer a mechanical device. And it has completely transformed the organization, and they are completely frightened by this, right? They don't know what to do. They have never needed any of this before. And if they don't deal with this, some competitor is going to deal with this, and they will lose their market leadership position. And the entire business is completely different than what it's ever been before. And this brings us to a basic truth of the world that we live in today, which is that every organization is one of two types of organizations. Either that organization is currently undergoing a transformation, or that organization doesn't realize that they are currently undergoing a transformation. That's it, right? Everyone's undergoing a transformation. The only difference is whether you know it or not. And at the center of these transformations is some understanding, or soon to have some understanding, that what is central is the experience of the user. Because once we start to make all these changes, the user experience is no longer what it used to be. And we can either let it happen accidentally, what we call unintentional design, or we can be intentional about it. We define UX design as the rendering of intent. And the rendering of intent means that we have, as a UX professional, we have an intention of what we want to see in the world, the change that we want to see in the world. And so we can imagine what is the difference that we want to see. And based on that intention, we can then ask the question, how do we want to make that change happen? That's the rendering part. So what's the change we want to see? What is it that we want the to have happen? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how we come up with a strategy to help our organization figure out how to undergo the transformation that it is inevitably going through, whether they admit it or not. And using that strategy to, in the process, make sure what we do is deliver better products and better services, all in the service of helping our organization attain its goals. How's that sound? Does that sound exciting? Yes? No? I have no way of knowing if it sounds exciting to you. This is the nature of Zoom webinar, is you get no feedback. But that's okay. I'm just going to keep talking because that's what I do. There's
People are answering in the chat.
I see that. There's Bruno. I can get feedback from Bruno. Bruno, you are awesome. By the way, thank you so much for putting this together. You have done an amazing job, and I want to thank you for everything you've done for the industry. You have done amazing things, creating one of the foremost conferences in Europe and in the world, frankly, for UX. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ted.
Bruno is awesome. He's one of my favorite people on the planet. And if you hang out with him long enough, he gives you pastries, and that just is, the literal icing on the cake. Just going to put it right there. Okay, where were we? Bruno's gone again. He was here. He's ghost. It's like a ghost. So let's start talking about this transformation. So we're going to start with a discussion about business, because in order to understand what a UX strategy is, we have to understand something about the businesses or the organizations that we talk in. And I want to be clear that not every organization is a commercial business that has a product that it sells that generates revenue from that. But every organization has the same dynamics. It could be government, it could be a university, it could be a nonprofit. All of these things have to have these basic dimensions, because there has to be some source of, in today's world, there has to be some source of income, some source of revenue that comes into the organization. And they transform that revenue into expenses that they use to then generate whatever it is, the value is that the organization provides. If it's a commercial enterprise, the value that it's going to provide is value that is basically a product or a service that it sells that people will pay for. But if it's government, the value is something to the constituents of government. If it's a nonprofit, the value is the services that the nonprofit delivers as part of its mission. If it's a university, the value is the education that it delivers. So there's this engine, like any engine that takes some sort of fuel source and transfers it into some sort of energy, right? A business takes its fuel is cash, in essence, and it transforms that cash into value. And so we need to start with that basic premise, that there's this transformation of cash to value. And a place to start sort of historically here is that there's only two ways to make that transformation from cash to value. If we're a commercial business, the best we can do is we can basically, I don't know where all my pens went. I feel like, oh, they're there. I know where they went. Okay, we can transfer So part of what I do these days is I make marks on a piece of paper, hopefully to communicate, but I'm not very good at it. So I just we'll just make it up as we go along. Anyways, there's basically two ways that an organization can compete. You get a choice. You can either compete on price, or you can compete on value, on quality. Let's just go for there. Now remember, uh, what I said was we take income, which is basically cash, and we transfer that, we somehow transform that into value. And so there's two ways we can do this, right? We can compete on price, and when we compete on price, basically the idea it's actually a misnomer to say we compete on price, because what we're really competing on is cost. And the difference is the price is what we sell something for. The cost is what we pay for it. It's basically the expenditure of the cash during this transformation of value. And when you compete on cost, you always have to sell something for more money than it costs you. If you sell it for equal or less than it costs you, you eventually go out of business because you have no ability to grow your business, and all businesses must grow. So, so um, the basics here is that we have this problem that our cost has to be lower than our price, but we're competing against other people. If everybody's costs are the same, everybody's price is the same. And if people can't tell the difference between your product and your competitor's product other than the price, they're just going to pick one at random. It doesn't matter which one they pick. It doesn't matter what they do. This is basically what's known as a commodity business. Doesn't matter which one you buy, just buy one and you get whatever's cheapest. And so the way this works is the cost has to go down. We have to keep lowering the cost. If we lower the cost, we can lower the price. And ideally, what we want to do is we want to lower our cost below our competitor's cost. So this is our cost, and this is our competitor's cost. And if we if we lower it such that theirs is that low and ours is this low, this means our price can be in this space here. And this, if our price is here, I'll draw euros. If our price is here, it means that we are below their cost. It means if they sell the same product at the same price that we're selling it at, they lose money. And if we get them to do that for long enough, they are no longer our competitor. And this is a tried and true business proposition. You pay attention to the prices that everybody else is charging, you get your costs lower than those prices, and you go just a little lower. And the whole goal is to get into this window. And that's how you compete on price. This is the secret behind companies like Walmart, who basically use all sorts of incredible techniques to lower their cost. For example, they when you buy Doritos, I probably can't do this in Europe, but in the U.S., maybe you can do it in Europe. You could buy Pringles; it's the same thing. When you buy chips or crisps or whatever you call them, the company that sells those doesn't actually sell them to Walmart. Walmart has figured out how to get Frito-Lay, which is the company behind Doritos. I actually don't remember who the company behind Pringles is, but they get Frito-Lay to keep the inventory in their own warehouses and to send their own people to the Walmart store to stock the shelves. So Walmart isn't paying anybody to stock the Doritos. Frito-Lay is. And Walmart isn't storing any extra inventory in a warehouse, so they don't pay for that space. So they have figured out how to reduce their costs so low that they can basically sell Doritos for just pennies above what it costs them, which is way lower than any of the other competitors can sell Doritos. So someone who's looking for cheap Doritos are going to come to Walmart to get them, and that's how they compete on price. And you could say, okay, well, what does this have to do with user experience? Well, those systems that they use to make sure that the Frito-Lay people know to come to the store and stock the shelves, what the inventory levels are, all of that is all in the name of keeping costs as low as possible. So this is one option, competing on price. But there's another option here, which is competing on quality. When you compete on quality, it means that there's literally some quality that is valuable, and there's something about it that is valuable enough that price is not a factor. Because price is not a factor, people are interested in the quality, right? Maybe it runs on better gas mileage. You think about cars, right? Maybe it runs on maybe it looks better. It's just a better looking vehicle. Maybe it fits more people in it, right? And so people will pay more. They will pay more money in order to get better quality. This is why there are cars you can buy for $13,000, and there are cars you can buy for $100,000. And what's the difference between those? Well, it's some quality of attribute of quality that makes a difference. And so by understanding what that difference is in quality, we can then charge more money. So conventionally, quality starting in about the 1970s were things like reliability, visual aesthetics, for things like vehicles, it was power and luxury features. Maybe it was ease of maintainability, right? These are all qualities that people will pay for and pay more for because they get it. So if you think about any product or service where you have paid more money than what you could have gotten somewhere else, what was the thing you were paying for? Some of it's status, right? If I'm seen wearing these clothes or driving these vehicles, I then get some feedback on that. And think about this for a second. The problem with price is there's a floor. You cannot go below zero, right? I mean, well, the oil companies did for a little while last year, when in fact the price for a barrel of oil went to minus $38. That meant they had to pay people $38 to get the oil off the truck. But that didn't last for very long. That was just a fluke of oil futures. And the reality is that you can't get to zero. There's nowhere you can go. But quality is infinite. Drawing an 8 on its side is actually really hard. Quality is infinite, right? We can keep adding quality. We can find some new way to add quality. And the new way to add quality, I've got really good news. The new way to add quality, which is pretty much infinite, is user experience. How awesome is that? Because we can always make the experience better. And we can always make the experience better from for the users such that people will pay more money in order to get better quality. Okay. So now, what I want you to do is, if you have questions, put the questions in the Q&A. Don't put them in the chat, because I'm going to be completely honest with you. I am not paying attention to the chat at all. So it is too distracting for me. So I'm only going to pay attention to the Q&A. So that's a different button at the bottom of your screen. So if you wouldn't mind putting any questions you have that you'd like me to answer there. And you can upvote other people's questions there. And when you do that, it sorts them. And so the most popular questions will be the ones I ignore first. How's that sound? I'm just kidding. I will ask them first. Does that sound good? Okay. Again, I have no way of knowing if you think that's good or not. Okay, so where were we? Oh yes, we were talking on the ability to choose between price and quality. So the problem with price is that the user experience doesn't matter one little bit, at least not for the product itself. Where the user experience can matter is in the tools that help us deliver better prices. But we still are competing against the floor, right? We're always going to be cutting costs in the price category. So instead, everybody would, except for Walmart, everybody would rather be competing on quality. And if you think about the businesses that have the best user experiences, they compete on quality, right? Apple, right? You can buy any computer you want, you can buy any phone you want, you can buy any watch you want, but you buy an Apple. And you pay way more money for an Apple product than you pay for the for any of their competitors' products. And how do you how do you do that? You invest completely in quality, and when you invest in quality, you don't invest in cost. So I see that Jens asked about examples where quality and cost in combination get the best result. They don't. They don't. Quality, by far, you can spend as much money as you want if you charge enough. So investing in quality is much different, right? There's no way that Mercedes-Benz, I mean, they try to keep their costs down, but their costs are way higher than any of their other competitors in those markets. So there is no sort of balance there. So when we focus on quality, we pay less attention to cost. That doesn't mean we pay zero attention, but we pay less attention, because there's an old saying: you have to make money, spend money to make money. That's what we're going to do here. So that's the key piece of that. So now, let's see if I can open this. I can look at that. So where are we in the outline? Oh, yes. Well, let me take some questions now. Let me do that, because there are some. Pedro asked, can I go a step further to talk about how we measure quality in UX? I'm going to answer that later, so I'm going to put that off to later. Sarah asked, what do you think of another way of competing, like speed? Speed's quality. Sarah, let me find you, and I'm gonna make you live, and then we can, let me see if I can do this. There we go. Oh, there you are. So if I do this and I promote you to panelist. So Sarah, You should have a button that lets you turn on your camera now, I think, if I did that right. Uh, uh, yes. Hi. You can turn on your camera and your mic and we can talk. Are you there? You are there. A little dark, but that's okay. Who knew that you were going to be doing this today, right? There we go. Hi, Sarah. Uh, uh, uh,
Hi.
where are you calling in
Where are you
from?
calling in from?
So I am based now in Vancouver, but I am originally from Poland. That's why I have an accent.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, it could
Well,
be a
it could
Canadian
be a
accent.
Canadian accent.
Could be, I guess. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for making me laugh. Yeah, I was just wondering what you think of speed, because to me, like, it does. So it connects to quality because quality is lower, but like when quality is lower, you're not really competing with the quality, right?
Um,
Um,
it
it
depends.
depends.
If somebody
If
needs
somebody
something
needs
right
something right
now,
now,
uh,
uh,
could you do me a favor and
could
just
you do me a
echo
favor, just
while I'm
echo while
talking
I'm
because there's a
talking?
little bit
Because
of mute or echo there. Mute while I'm talking. There's a little bit of echo. That's what I wanted to say. Okay, thank you. You can compete uh, uh, on quality, but or on speed. Uh, uh, and it's very possible that speed will push down the quality of other things. But if the most desirable thing is having it now and having it perfect is not desirable, people may pay extra for that, right? If you're the only one who sells it in the market, right? This is what's known as first mover advantage. In first mover advantage, you have the advantage because you're the first one to do this. Nobody else does it. But you only keep that advantage until a competitor comes along. And if you think about the really successful businesses right now, they weren't first movers, right? Facebook wasn't the first social network. Uh, uh, Friendster was. Where are they today? Google wasn't the first search engine. AltaVista was, or Lycos, or Excite, or any number of other search engines. Even Yahoo. Where are they today? Right? So first mover advantage um, is a thing, but it doesn't last. So you better have a game plan that keeps your quality higher than your competitors on all the dimensions that matter to users once you have a competitor. Does that make sense, Sarah?
Yeah, totally, and I agree with that. Although I think from the perspective of designers, we usually agree on such approach. There is just pressure from organizations very often to like push on speed and then compromise on important UX elements like user testing and so on. So that was something I kind of wanted to hear from you.
Right,
Like,
right.
yeah.
right.
You're absolutely
You're
right. And there's so what we have to do as UX leaders, and I don't know if you knew this, but because you chose this session, you are automatically a UX leader. Uh, uh, be, be, as a UX leader, you have to basically um, uh, help the organization understand this trade-off that we can go for first mover advantage, but it turns out that for many folks, it's a better strategy to let the first movers come in and figure out what's important and make all the investment to just figure out what works. And then you just take what they did and copy the stuff that works, eliminate the stuff that doesn't work. You let them pay all the research costs to do that. So your costs are going to be lower in that process. And then you figure out something that they've missed and you come out with that. And that's as good a strategy too. And so we get choices, and that's really important to understand. We have choices as an organization. We have choices, but not everybody in the organization understands what all of our choices are. And so we may have to be the ones to sort of break it to them to say, yeah, there's choices out there that we need to attend to. So uh, uh, That was a great question. Thank you, Sarah, for joining me, turning on your lights, and all of the things. You know, it's not that dark in Canada right now, even in Vancouver.
Yeah, hopefully. Thank you so much.
Okay. So, okay. There we go. So now Pedro's question has a lot of good votes, but I'm going to defer it to a little later. Sarah Griesler asks, when working on products that users have to use, B2B, how do you make the case for quality when the business? Oh, that's beautiful, Sarah. I'm gonna warning. I'm going to make you one of our superheroes here. Hold on one sec. How do I do that? Oh, I have to go up here and type it in again. So I go here, I type in Sarah, and promote to panelist. Okay, so Sarah's going to join us here in a second, and we'll talk to us. There's Sarah. Sarah, if you wouldn't mind, you don't have to put on your camera if you don't want to, but if you could explain where your question's coming from a little on the audio, that would be really helpful. Hi, I see you. Okay.
Me?
I can hear you.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Can you say a little bit about, well, where are you calling in from?
I'm calling in from London.
From London. Oh, hello. Thank you for joining us. So say a little bit more about what your question's coming from.
Yeah, my question is coming from a point of view of working on B2B products and trying sometimes to define a strategy where we prioritize the end user experience can be quite difficult when working on products that our users kind of have to use in order to sell on a specific platform. It's just part of the package. So wanting to make the quality of the experience a primary outcome can be kind of tough when you need to compete with some of the business outcomes.
Right. Okay, so there's a couple ways to deal with this, but I'm going to tell you the secret. This works out great because this is where I was going to go next in our little conversation here. So if you'll bear with me, I'm going to draw some more. Hopefully it's not too painful. So it turns out that there's a factor that works in our favor here, and that factor is called the cost of frustration. So whenever something has a poor experience, there are costs that are subsumed by the organization. Now, in the case of something where the person who uses it, the user is equal to the customer. Jeff Patton refers to them as users and choosers. I sort of like that. The person who chose that we're going to use this product. When they are the same person, the user and the chooser, what happens is that the business gets if the experience is poor, the business is gonna see the costs of that poor experience, because it's possible they're going to lose sales. It's possible that they're going to increase support costs. People are going to call in, or they're going to return products that aren't any good, or they're going to be grumpy on the phone. They're going to increase training costs because people need to be trained. There's going to be some sort of productivity lost amongst the employees of the company that produced the product, in that they now have to take extra steps to do simple things because it doesn't work anymore. There are possibly development costs. In particular, developers end up redoing work over and over again because they didn't get it right the first time and they have to do it again. Or there's a cost because they work really hard to build a feature or a component of the product, and then it's unused. And so all of that money was waste, right? And there's probably some other costs that can show up places too, but these are the main ones. And the thing is that you can track in your organization where these costs are happening. You can see how many support calls are due to a particular feature. You can talk to the salespeople and find out that the lost sales are due to the UX being crappy, right? So all of these things you can track. Now, when the user is not the same as the chooser, to use the Jeff Patton vocabulary, these same things happen, but they happen in the chooser's organization. Right? In the chooser's organization, they have a help desk that deals with the fact that the system is really hard to use. They have training that deals with the fact that the system is really hard to use. They have productivity losses because people are putting bad data into the system because it's really hard to use. They have things they paid for that are unused or things they have to redo over and over again, right? And chances are they are losing sales for whatever it is they produce because they bought this tool to actually help them do better at their process of converting income to value. And because they are doing better at converting income to value, or they're trying to help convert income to value, they bought this tool to make that better, and it's actually making it worse, and they're losing value. Does that make sense, Sarah?
Yeah, I think so. I think because of the nature, the complex nature of the business, sometimes we're talking about products, sometimes about services. So there's obviously nuances to this, but I really love your example there because it gives you a powerful language to argue the quality of the UX depending on who you have to have the argument with. If it's the business, it's the sales. If it's the engineering team or the product team, it might be the development effort. So I think it gives you a lot of different things you can track, and then different parameters you can use as a measurement of this cost quality. So I think that's really interesting.
It gets even better than this, which is when this is happening in the organization, there's almost always somebody who's already in charge of dealing with this problem. Right? So in the case where the user is the chooser, right, there's someone in charge of making sure sales stop getting lost, right? That's usually the head of sales. And there's someone in charge of making sure support costs are kept down. That's usually the head of support. And there's someone in charge of training, and there's someone in charge of all the people who are losing productivity, and there's someone in charge of development. And if you can identify where there are big costs, if you can find big costs here, you can identify who that person is, and we have a name for that person. We call them a champion, right? Because they are already chartered with the task of fixing this problem. But the problem is, it never occurred to them that it was UX. In many cases, it never occurred to them that their support costs are because the product is built wrong. They assume the product is built the way it has to be built, and they just have to deal with that because that's what they've always done. And it's never made a difference to them. So this champion is often hidden from us in the UX world because they don't live in UX. They don't even know about UX. They probably don't know we exist. And in many cases, we may not know they exist. But we have to find them. So we look for where the costs are mounting in the business. And keep in mind, remember I said income gets turned into value, right? This is really important to understand. And the thing is that all of these things are part of this income to value chain. But the more we can produce value at a lower cost, right? We're always trying to reduce costs. These are costs. And so it's not unusual for these costs, which are ongoing costs, these ongoing costs to be mounting up over the period of a year or 3 years or 5 years. These costs get really big. Whereas if we fix the UX, that's a one-time cost. If we get it right on the first time, we may even have to do it 2 or 3 times, but we by the time we get it right, we've only paid once, and we don't have to pay ever again. And so UX is a one-time cost, whereas all of these things are ongoing costs. And the ongoing costs keep accumulating. And because they keep accumulating, we can start to argue. The largest bank in Australia, I was working with them a few years back, and they we went to the support team, and we were fishing around, and we just basically, because I had this suspicion that there were all sorts of costs that were associated to poor user experience, but I didn't know what they were. I was working with the UX team there, and we went and we visited the support team, and we went in asking a question like, how would we figure out what the most common support calls are? And they're like, oh, we already know that. We keep that data. I'm like, well, what are the most common support calls? Well, I don't know what the top 10 are, but I can tell you number 1 is resetting passwords. And I'm like, resetting passwords? And said, yeah, resetting passwords. When we first rolled out our online banking, this was actually really hard functionality to build, so we didn't build it. And we've never bothered to go back and fix it. So if someone needs to reset their password, they have to call the toll-free number, and then our operator over the phone, our customer service rep, changes their password for them. They tell the person orally what the password is, and they fix it. And we handle thousands of these calls every day, and with a little back of the envelope math, we were able to figure out in that session that it came to $75 million a year. Now it's Australian dollars, so that doesn't really count. They're not real dollars. But $75 million a year is what it cost to change passwords for every customer who wants their password changed or who gets locked out of their account or whatever it is. And so after that meeting ended, we were really curious about this. So we took the elevator from the 24th floor of the tower down to the 6th floor of the tower, where there's a walkway to the other tower. And then we went to the other tower, and we took the elevator from there up to the 31st floor of the next tower. And we sat down with the head of IT. And we asked the head of IT, hey, did you know that password resets cost the company a lot of money? He says, yeah, I keep hearing that. He said, well, do you know it costs about $75 million? He says, no, I never knew it cost that much. He says, well, how much would it cost to actually build password reset capability into the system? Because like this is sort of a solved problem, right? And he said, oh, we have had a plan for this ever since we first released online banking. We've just never been able to do it. So I know exactly how much it costs. So, well, how much does it cost? He said, it costs about $2 million. I'm like, okay, so why don't we do that? Since you'd have $73 million left to do something with. And he says, I can't. I said, why not? He says, well, because I'm only allowed to spend budget on things that are shiny and can go into the annual report. And there's no way I can explain why in the annual report we are spending money on fixing a problem we've had for 15 years that doesn't make us a better bank. And so it's not my purview. I can't do this. I'm not allowed to fix this. I'd like to, but I can't. And so we actually we took the head of support and we worked our way up the chain to try and figure out, well, who can make the decision between spending $75 million every year or $2 million once. And we found the person, and they had a really interesting job title. The job title for that person was CEO of the largest bank of Australia. That was the person who got to decide whether they were going to do password resets or not. And for some reason, in 15 years, it had never come up on their agenda. And as soon as we got like 2 minutes of time and we were able to explain $75 million, $2 million, like, why are you even bothering to ask me this? Yes, of course we can do this. And then we did it. And so this is the process. Does this make sense, Sarah?
Perfect sense, actually. As you were talking, I can see all the parallels and all the examples in my organization. So that was really helpful. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, this is working out. Let me make you an attendee again, and then I'm going to go find another question here. Let's see. Nicholas asks, UX has its own costs. What would be your best argument to include UX in a product design strategy? We'll answer that in just a little bit. How do you go about practically creating the perception of high quality? Oh, okay. Chloe, I'm going to make you live. Beware, it's coming. It's happening. We're doing this. Chloe, promote to panelist. You've been promoted, Chloe. You are now a panelist. This is your moment to shine. This is your 15 minutes of fame, as Andy Warhol once famously said. Chloe, I can see you. Let's see if I can hear you. Not yet. You might have to tell Zoom which microphone to use. Try using just your PC mic. There's a little arrow next to the mute button. That's how you tell it. Or take off your headset. That would be the other way to do it. No? How about semaphores or some sort of sign language? No? Okay. Well, let me ask your question as you asked it, and then we'll go from there. You could use the chat to put in your thoughts. Let's see. How do you go about practically creating the perception of high quality? Okay. This is a fairly straightforward question, though it would be lovely if I could learn a little bit more about where you're coming from on that. Basically, the way that you do this is you use research to figure out what's valuable to people. High quality is something that's valuable that someone will pay extra for. That's the trick. So if you can get someone to pay extra for it, it's high quality, and it's perceived as high quality. So you have to find that attribute that people will pay for and then promote it, right? Why do people pay more money for an iPhone than for a Samsung phone, right? There's something about the phone, and we have to do the research to understand that. So it's pretty clear. You asked us, you say, start with why, how, what. So that sounds very Simon Sinek, and you're on the right track there, right? What is it about this? What problem are we solving to get us there? So this brings me sort of to the next thing that we were going to talk about, which is the notion of a UX outcome. So a UX outcome is this idea. So I'm going to switch to scribbling here. A UX outcome answers a question. The question is, if we do a fantastic job how does doing that fantastic job improve someone's life? So let's assume we're going to do a fantastic job on whatever it is we're building. By doing that, how will we improve someone's life? That's the UX outcome. The UX outcome is the improvement. Right. So in order to figure out what that improvement is, there's lots of ways to do it, but the easiest way is to understand the current experience. When we understand the current experience, we can see what's happening in their life today. And we can measure user experiences on a scale. So it's a timeline, right? Because a user experience is basically something that happens over time. It's okay, Chloe, don't feel bad. The computer was not your friend today, but that's okay. It happens. So we have a series of milestones. This is the experience of a user, right? So in Chloe's case, she came to the workshop and that went pretty well, and then she put in a question and that went pretty well, and then I called on her and then she tried to answer and suddenly she's frustrated, right? So this is the experience, right? We can measure the experience on a scale of extreme frustration to extreme delight. And in Chloe's case, we can say that it started out pretty delightful, and then I called on her, and that was more delightful because, after all, she got to talk to me, and then she tried to talk to me, and that got really frustrating. And so we can measure experiences on this scale of delight to frustration. And so then we collect these experiences up. So this is what research gives us, right? So we do UX research. We collect up these experiences one at a time, and we're looking for these places where things are particularly frustrating. Those are going to be the improvement that we can do. At the same time, we want to also pay attention to the things that are particularly delightful, because we don't want to destroy them. We don't want to make things worse. So we have this notion. Now, getting from the current experience to the improvement, people often think that what we need to do here is we need to create some sort of solutions. And if we get these solutions, they will be the improvement. We do have to create some sort of solution, but a solution is really only a response to a problem. So what we need to do instead is we need to understand the problem. Right? We need to understand the problems to solve are the things that are preventing Chloe from getting the improvement she wants right now. What is it that prevented her from engaging in the conversation? If we can understand that problem and then come up with a solution, we can give her an improvement. That's going to be a quality that she's going to want to pay extra for. So we need to understand the problems. And there's an old saying, which is, great designers don't fall in love with their solutions. Great designers fall in love with the problems. That's what we have to do. We have to fall in love with the problems that we're trying to solve. That's the key piece of this. And so this is the core of a UX strategy. All a UX strategy is it's the sum of the experience, knowledge, people, anything to do with UX, everything the organization has that can use UX to help the organization achieve its goals. Any organization has multiple strategies. if we draw an org chart of an organization, we have the execs up here, maybe we have the board up here, right? And then we have a bunch of departments. And we've got sales, and we've got marketing, and we've got finance, and we've got HR, and we've got product, and we've got, engineering or IT. We've got support. We should never forget support. There's probably others. There's, operations. And somewhere in here, there's UX. And maybe UX is at the same level, but in many organizations, it reports to product or reports to marketing or it reports to engineering, right? Doesn't matter. We don't care. But each one of these departments has a strategy. Sales has a strategy to figure out who to sell to and how we're going to generate cash from the products. Are they going to go after new customers? Are they going to go after existing customers? Are they going into a new region? Are they selling a product we've never sold before? Are they trying to get more money from the customers they've already gotten, right? Marketing is all about getting leads and awareness, and that's their strategy. And so how are they doing that? Are they running campaigns? Are they buying commercials in the Super Bowl? What are they doing? Finance is they have strategies to keep cash moving through the system, right? How do we make sure we can meet payroll every week? How do we make sure we can pay our expenses? How do we keep the cash going? HR has a staffing. So everybody's got a strategy. The product people, well, they've got a roadmap. And UX, engineering, they're about delivery. Right? All of these are strategies. The UX strategy, it's going to be better UX. Right? How do we help? Each one of these strategies is asking the question, how can we use all the knowledge, experience, talents, competencies, people, resources for our sales to generate and meet the goals of the company? How can we use all our marketing competencies, knowledge, resources, people, experience to help the goals of the company? HR, how can we use all of our HR knowledge, experience? So it's the same thing. How do we use all of our UX knowledge, experience, people, resources, capabilities to help the goals of the company? That's what a UX strategy is. And when we go back to this, our UX strategy is how do we take the current experience and improve people's lives to add quality so that they will pay more money? That's it. That's it in a nutshell. That's all of it. Chloe, what do you think of that? This is how we do it. We just use the thing we always were doing, except now we're thinking in terms of strategy. Yeah, it's really simple. And we get really wrapped around the axle thinking that this is somehow bigger or much more complicated than it needs to be. It doesn't need to be this complicated at all. This is what we do. And in fact, what we can do as UX leaders is we can start by finding the friendliest people here and figuring out who would be the friendliest people to go talk to, and just basically walking up to them saying, hi, I'm from UX. How can I help you? How can I help you do what your strategy is? This has a name. It's called servant leadership. Servant leadership. And it's basically leadership by asking people, how can I use my strengths to help you achieve your success? And so by taking a servant leadership perspective and walking up to each of these people, we can go to product and say, how can we help you reduce risk on the roadmap? How can we help engineering deliver faster, right? This is what a design system does, is help them deliver faster, right? So all of these things are part of our UX strategy to deliver better products and services to help the organization achieve its goals. That's the whole thing. There's nothing more complicated than that. That is it. So I could have just told you that at the beginning, and then we could have like just talked about weather or something for an hour and 12 minutes. I don't know. I guess I screwed up. Okay. I promised we would get to some other questions here, so let me do this. We're gonna take Pedro's question about measuring quality. Pedro, let's try finding you in the magic system and seeing if your microphone works. Where are you here? There's multiple Pedros. Oh my gosh, Pedro, there's more than one of you. How do I find the one of you I need? There it is. Okay, promote to panelist. Okay, Mr. Pedro. Let's see if we can hear from you. Say a little bit more about what you do. Hola. Where are you calling in from? Oh, I can't hear you either. Got to unmute.
Hi, Jared.
Hi there. Hola. Where are you calling in from?
I'm calling from rainy Lisbon today. So
Rainy Lisbon. Okay, it is sunny but fresh snow. We had 4 inches on top of 2 feet of snow. So what is that? About that's going to be about 27 inches of snow. So that's roughly 50 centimeters of snow we have outside.
that's a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of snow. It's crazy. Anyways, that's not what we came to talk about. So tell me a little bit more about your desire to measure things. Where's that coming from?
Yeah, I'm also a UX researcher, so I'm coming from that space in the industry. And I wonder if you had some, not tips. Okay, I'm not looking for tips, but how can we measure the quality of a UX? What measure works and what doesn't, and how can we measure what matters? Metrics and proxy metrics. I myself as a UX researcher, I have my metrics like research triangulation, product team member participation in UX research, and my metrics. But I was wondering more of a global approach to metrics for measuring quality in UX.
Okay, excellent question. Let me explain how we think about metrics now from a strategic standpoint. So first we have to define some terms. So the first term we have to define is measure, because people confuse measure and metrics. They are different things. So a measure is an observable change. Observable change, right? So a week ago we didn't have any snow. Now we have 50 centimeters of snow. That's a measure, right? And we can observe it, and we use a ruler that's calibrated to tell us how big the change in snow is. Otherwise, I could say 50 centimeters to you, but if you didn't have a ruler that said what a centimeter was, it would be a meaningless number to you. But I could say it went from 0 to 50, and that would be fine too, right? So that's a change. But units are important. So measure is observable change, sometimes with units, sometimes it's proportionate, and I could say that we got twice as much snow as last year, and that might mean something to you, and you still don't know the units, but at least it's twice as much, right? So that's what a measure is. A metric is a measure that we track, right? We can measure all sorts of things, but we only track a handful of them. And so, for instance, we can measure how many times the letter E shows up on a web page. That's countable. We can measure it. I can tell you that one web page has twice as many E's as another web page. But that measure is not something we track because we don't care, right? We don't care how many times the letter E shows up on a web page. So that's an important difference. There's another term that we like to use, which is analytics. And in technology, this word gets used a lot for lots of things. In finance, it means something completely different. But in technology, analytics means that measures that computers track. And so when we talk about page visits, that's a measure that a computer tracks. But actually, we can't measure page visits. There's no way to observe a page visit. What we can observe is we can observe an HTTP request to a web server. And so we can count the number of HTTP requests, but if somebody has the page cached or they go to a CDN or some other thing and they don't actually hit our server, we can't tell if they visited the page. So it turns out that something like page visits is not an accurate measure at all. In fact, it's not a measure. It's what you would call a proxy. We are, more importantly, it's what you would call an inference. We are guessing that the number of HTTP requests equals the number of page visits. But we know with, for instance, bots and crawlers that that is not a page visit. That's a bot and a crawler. So we don't count that. But we have to be able to tell it's a bot and a crawler, and we can't always do that. Sometimes they tell us, sometimes they don't. So page visits is an inaccurate measure because it doesn't always tell us the change that we're trying to see. And so, and there are lots of these, right? Time on page, bounce rate. All of these don't actually measure anything. So most of the things that an analytics package tells you are lies. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. But the thing that analytics package can do for us is that they have APIs. And the APIs allow us to count whatever we want. So if we can come up with a measure that we're interested in, such as the amount of money people spend on our website, we can feed it into the API of the analytics and we can start to track it. And ideally, that's more accurate than the things that come with the package. A good example of this is error messages. Do you know what the most delivered error message on your system is? You probably don't. But if you did, it would give you a hint as to what is frustrating users, because no one ever gets an error message and is happy about it. So that's a process that helps you with that. Okay, so those are the definitions that we have to work with. So given that, let me tell you about measures. We have something which we call UX metrics. And UX metrics are measures, categories of measures that we can make. And they're all based on the UX outcome. So we start with the UX outcome. Remember, the UX outcome is, if we do a great job, how will we improve someone's life? So the UX outcome is about an improvement. So using that as sort of the foundation, what we can then do is create some elements of this. So the first one that we care about is what we call a UX success metric. And a UX success metric is, if you think of the our user's journey as on our way to their improvement, right? So if you think of the improvement as a marathon race, somewhere in here there's a finish line. And the moment we cross that finish line, that's success. Okay? And it's a binary thing. We've either crossed it or we haven't crossed it. We don't really care what happens on the other side of the finish line. And we only care about what's on this side of the finish line to know that we've not gotten success yet. So success metrics are the exact moment we can celebrate crossing the finish line. So whatever that improvement is, the moment they get that improvement, that's success. That's how we know what a success metric is. Okay, so that's success metrics. But there's another type, which are progress metrics. And progress metrics are the milestones that happen along the way to our success metric. and they are dependent on what the success metric is. So I can't tell you what to measure for your progress metrics until I know what your success metric is. I can't tell you what your success metric is until I know what the improvement you're trying to get is. But this is, maybe this is 50% improvement. Maybe this is 25% improvement. Maybe this is 10% improvement, right? If we were running a marathon is what, 42 kilometers, right? So, so let's say, this is 21 kilometers, and this is, 10K, and this is 5K. Right. So we can measure if we've managed to run 5K. We can measure if we've managed to run 10K. We can manage if we managed to run 21K. Right. We can keep measuring until we get to 42K. So that's our progress metrics. Now there's one other type of metric that we care about, and we call these problem value metrics. And problem value metrics are different than progress metrics and success metrics in that they don't measure the improvement. They measure the problem that's preventing us from getting the improvement. Remember, I was talking earlier about all the costs, right? So I've got $75 million in password resets. Can I get that down to 30 million this year? Can I get it down to 10 million? Can I get it down to 5 million? Right? That's a problem value metric. A problem value metric is either money or time. Right? And can I take this metric? The nice thing about problem value metrics is they're easy for the rest of the business to understand because they talk in terms of money. Money is the currency of the rest of the business. That's a unit everybody understands. Just like when I said we had 50 centimeters of snow, you immediately got that. And said, wow, that's a lot of snow. So when you say to somebody, we spend $75 million a year on password resets, they go, holy shit, we spend a lot of money on password resets. So that's the entire purpose of problem value metrics. And you can show progress by reducing the problem value metric. Imagine, if we go back to this thing, imagine we have a big hill that we have to get to somewhere around kilometer 18. That's just crazy. And if people don't make it up the hill, they don't finish the race, right? That's a problem value metric. How far up the hill have we gotten? And so that's an obstacle we have to overcome. Okay. And then there's one more in our framework here, but it's unrelated to tracking this. We call them value discovery metrics. And value discovery metrics are actually a byproduct of all the rest of these. And by byproduct, I mean we're collecting all this data, and suddenly we realize there's value in just knowing this data, and we can use it in the interface as part of the medium of design. And it's part of our design palette. So let me give you an example. In Amazon, they have a feature called customers who've bought this have also bought. The only reason they know that is because they collect all this data about what customers buy. And they use that for internal purposes. They need that data. But it turns out if they surface it as part of the design, it's also useful to the customer. Knowing that people have bought something that they have also bought, that's this, right? And the way to think of this is if I go back to, well, I have a chart here. I just made it. There it is. Okay. Here's how we can lay all this out. Our UX outcome, this is where we measure our success metric. And the solutions we try, this is the progress metrics. Because every time we try a solution and we don't succeed, we actually learn more about the problem. So there's a loop here that happens between solution and problem, and that's our progress metric. The problem here, this is where we put in our problem value metric. This is the value to the organization of solving this problem. That's where you use that. And then the value discovery metrics. The best way I have of explaining this is when I was a kid, my mother would boil chickens. I don't know why she would boil chickens, but she would boil chickens. And we would eat them boiled. It's a horrible way to eat a chicken. It's an awful way to cook a chicken. But she would make broth, and she would do all these things with the chicken bones. But one of the things I remember is you take the broth and you put it in the fridge, and then overnight, this thick layer of chicken fat makes a hard thing at the surface. And I remember that chicken fat, and because we spoke Yiddish in the house, she would call it schmaltz. And we didn't get the chicken for the schmaltz. That wasn't why we bought the chicken, but because it made schmaltz, we used it in all the different places. So the best way to think about value discovery metrics is their schmaltz. We don't look for them, but when we find them, they're really helpful. Does that help, Pedro?
Yep, it helped a lot. It helped a lot, man. I'm going to dig deep into problem value metrics because it's new. It's a concept new to me, so I'll dig into it. Thank you.
Okay. Well, in April, we are doing a 5-day intensive. It's an online workshop. It'll take you, if you do the whole thing, you'll invest about 8 or 10 hours in it. There's homework. We work through it. We work through every aspect of UX metrics. The thing is called persuasive UX metrics. It's going to be the first week of April. You'll be able to find out about it if in this community that we run called Leaders of Awesomeness, which is our online community. So we're going to do that in April, and it's free. So you can come and join us in April for that for free and learn more about this. And anybody can come. The community is free. The intensive is free. So please feel free to sign up for that. Okay. I don't know if Bruno's hanging out. Bruno, how much do I have to end right at 11, or since we started pretty much on time? Do you want me to end right now?
No, we have a break now. You can cut into it a little bit if you want to share something additional.
Well, I've sort of covered everything I wanted to talk about, I think. Let me go look at my outline again. I think I got all the things covered. I know there are more questions. Oh, we didn't talk about reactive UX to proactive UX. Okay, let me just do that real quick, and then we'll call it a day. How's that sound? Yeah. So thank you, Bruno. See, he just appears. It's like it's like Beetlejuice. You just utter his name and he shows up. This is whenever you're undergoing transformation. So remember, at the very beginning, I talked about how every organization is undergoing transformation. Whenever you're undergoing transformation, there are 3 things that you have to deal with. You have to deal with mindset. You have to deal with tool set. You have to deal with skill set. You have to deal with mindset, right? Tool set, skill set, mindset. So the tool set is basically what are the tools that we use, right? And we've spent the last decades of UX focusing on tools and focusing on skills. But now we have to focus on mindset. If we want to deal with the transformations that our organizations are undergoing, whether they know it or not, we have to deal with the mindset changes, right? So that's what we have to focus on. That's the place that we undervalue. And so given that we have to focus on mindset changes, one of the ones is this. UX in many organizations organically starts in what we call reactive UX. And reactive UX is you get a new project and you work your ass off on that project, and then you wait for, and you deliver something, and then you wait for the next project, and you never know what projects are coming. You have no say on what's happening. It reminds me so much of the chocolate factory in that I Love Lucy episode of the chocolates coming down, and Lucy and Ethel are doing their best to to wrap all the chocolates, but it's coming too fast, and they don't know what to do with the chocolates, and they're told that if they let any chocolates go, they're going to get fired. So they start sticking the extra chocolates in their pockets and eating them and putting them in their hats. It's just a mess, right? And so the chocolate factory is where we work, right? That's reactive UX. We're completely reacting to what's coming down the pike. Proactive UX is when we get to have control over that, right? We get to actually say, what is the process that we go through? And a big part of UX strategy is shifting from reactive UX to proactive UX. So reactive UX is we don't know what projects are happening. Proactive UX is we actually get a say in what projects are happening. And the way we do that is through research. We use research in a servant leadership way. We go to the product managers and we say, let's look at the riskiest things on your roadmap. What research would be really helpful here? Let's look at new things on the roadmap. We can think of a roadmap. Let's talk about a roadmap for a second. We can think of a roadmap as a set of releases, right? A roadmap always deals with what we're working on now, what we're going to work on next, and what we're going to work on later. So we can think of this, the +0 as the current release, +1 is the next release, +2 is the next release, +3 is the next release. This is our roadmap. And what a lot of organizations do is they populate this roadmap with some sort of features. Okay, these are features we're working on now. These are the features we're going to work on next. These are the features that we're going to work on after that. Here's a feature we're going to do in the far future. We're going to put blockchain in here because that's always there. And then we're going to put another feature. And so these are all the features. And what happens is the way things get on this board is crazy, right? Somebody walks in with a giant bag of money, and they say, with this bag of money, they say, you know what? I have a client who's going to give us this big bag of money if we offer, I don't know, what do we want to call this? Data export, right? So we have to build data export, and that's this feature, right? So it's like, how much do we want that money? Do we add it to what we're doing now? Is that the crisis we have to make now, or do we put it in the next release? Do we put it down here, right? And there's this negotiation that happens, and we finally decide, okay, data export's going to go there, and so that's the way we do it. The problem is that these are features, right, in our diagram here. But if we don't know what the problem is, the odds of us getting the solution right are very slim. So we need to figure out what the problems are. So one aspect of a UX strategy is to go through the roadmap and start saying, okay, if we do this feature really well, what's the problem we're solving? Can we start referring to this in terms of the problem? So how do we start talking about this stuff in terms of problems? What are the problems of each of these things? And when we get to data export, the question is, what's the problem for data export? Well, it turns out that people can use data exports for all different things. They can use them for backups. They can use them to create a new instantiation of the data somewhere else. They can use it to pipe into a third-party app for some functionality. Maybe the third-party app is Excel because it's always Excel. Maybe the reason they're doing it is to make charts. And the question is, well, why are we building data export? Why don't we build charts? Right? Maybe that's the better thing we need to build. If we don't understand the problem, we're not going to know that building charts actually is the better thing. Or maybe we already have charts and they're just not obvious in the way the information architecture works because we've let the information architecture get crappy, right? So we go through and we figure out what all the problems for everything are, and we replace we replace the features with problems. What problem is blockchain solving? Well, actually, blockchain doesn't solve any problems, so we can just get rid of it. And so that's the idea. And so this is part of moving from reactive, where we're just worrying about what the next feature is, to proactive, where we are actually talking about in advance what the problems we're solving are. And once we do that, we can start to create some research that helps us understand the problem. So while they're 2 releases away, we can start doing some basic research, and we can even add this onto the research we're doing here, right? If we're already talking to customers to figure out if we're building it right, right? So this is us building the right thing. That's what we do when it's now. But when these things get promoted, we're going to have to figure out, well, what are we going to build? So that's do we have the right solution? Right? So we go from having the right solution to figuring out how to build it right. That's what our research tells us. But when we're down here, we want to even know, is this the right problem? Because, you know, there's lots of problems we could be solving. If we're solving the wrong problem, we're not going to make the customer who gave us the big bag of money happy. So we're not going to add value to what they're trying to do. So that's the idea by switching to proactive UX, which is a research-based UX, which starts to research why are we doing what we're doing in order to build out the solution. There you go. That's UX strategy in 90 minutes. I have done what I've come to do. How's that sound? Was that valuable to you?
Thank you, Jared.
Join our Leaders of Awesomeness. That's the place where we talk about UX strategy every week, and we explore all the different aspects of it every week. So I'll put that in the chat again in case you missed it the first time. I'll also add it to the document here at the top. And in case you didn't get the document link, I'll post it here for you. There you go. So that's everything.
Thank you, Jared.
Okay, Bruno, did I earn a custard tart?
The virtual one, yes.
Yes. Okay.
Okay,
Boa tarde. Thank you very much.
Okay, bye.
Bye.